It is one of the biggest games of the season. We knew it in the preseason. I believe at the very end of this 2024 season, we'll review this game as one of the biggest games of the year. Georgia goes to Texas. They play 7:30 Saturday night on ABC. Texas is the favorite. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Welcome to the channel. I know you see all the Clemson garb around me, but I talk about other college football teams, and this is a great example right here. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe. The channel's blowing up, and that's all because of y'all. So thank you so much. Hope you'll drop a like, and let me know that you were here. Drop it in the comments section. Clemson knows firsthand how dominant Georgia can be. I really don't want to recall that, but I'm one of those guys who chooses to tell the truth versus get drunk on Dabo Swinney's fandom juice. No offense, Coach Swinney. I mean, the man does have 2 national championships. But I know that Georgia is extremely talented. Kirby Smart is the face of college football since an old man down in Tuscaloosa decided to call it quits at the end of last season. You know, he lost in overtime in the college football playoff. That's failure for him. But Georgia is extremely talented. Enters the picture Texas, a team that was shoved down our throat year in and year out for many years since their national championship with Mac Brown and Vince Young and all of that. Lindy's, Athlon, ESPN, and just throw in somewhere else, was just giddy for all these years that Texas would be back, and Texas did not show. Even a few years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, the last time Georgia and Texas played was in a Sugar Bowl when Texas beat them, and Texas's quarterback infamously said at the end of the game, "We're back!" No, you wasn't, because the guy who was coaching you that night ended up getting fired because y'all were not back. This is a different Texas team. They're coming off of a playoff appearance. They look extremely dominant. And coming into this game, they're the number 1 team in America. Georgia is number 5. The interesting fact about this game is that most would have thought that Georgia would be the number 1 team in America and the front runner to win this game. Things have changed since that day in Atlanta when the Bulldogs smacked Clemson around. Since then, they lost to Alabama. Now, granted, Alabama blew, a 28-point lead, and Georgia did come all the way back and take the lead. Kudos to them. But Georgia struggled this past weekend against Mississippi State. This is not a good Mississippi State team, y'all. This is not like that Dan Mullen team from about 10 years ago. No, this is a Mississippi State team that's 1-5. Yeah, 1-5. They put up 31 points on Georgia. Georgia beat them by 10. The week before that, Georgia beat Auburn 31-13. Okay, that was commandingly. That was a commanding win. They barely beat Kentucky 13-12. On the other side, let's talk about Texas. Texas started off the season at the defending national championship stadium. Or the national champion stadium. Y'all, I can't speak. What's new? Now, Michigan is not the same team as last year. They have a different head coach, but they still have a lot of talent. And it was in Ann Arbor. Texas beats them 31-12. They've beat some no-name teams, but they played Mississippi State, beat them 35-13 the week before Georgia beat Mississippi State. Of course, Texas is coming off that massive, dominating win in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. Normally, this is where you would look at a rivalry and you would say, throw all the records out. It doesn't matter. Yeah, Texas wasn't having any of that. And they drilled Oklahoma 34-3. Hence, we're in this game. Now, Texas is a 5-point favorite. The over-under is 56.5. And when the spread opened, Texas was a 3.5-point favorite. Now it's up to 5. That's kind of normal and so on. But what is the key to this game? Instead of me just sitting here and rambling, which, if you watch me, I very well can do. I can ramble about the talent on both of these teams. I can talk about the coaches, and that's extremely important. But what does it really come down to? To me, it comes down to the quarterback play. Carson Beck is not a bad quarterback whatsoever. The guy is 142 of 209, 1,818 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Now, when you go to the other side, the leading passer at this moment is Arch Manning. Why? Because, well, he had to fill in for an injured Quinn Ewers. We know Quinn Ewers is obviously getting the nod this week. But Texas is good at quarterback. They're fine. Arch has never played against a team like this, but Arch is not playing this game unless there's an unfortunate injury. Quinn Ewers will be playing this game. A guy who has tenure, a guy who is accomplished, a guy who's coming off of a playoff appearance. And I think that's the difference. Not that he's coming from a playoff appearance. I believe Texas is going to put the game on Carson Beck's shoulders. And between you and I think that's going to be the right move. And I think the Georgia Bulldogs goes to Austin and they lose this game. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a game that's going to be so close that whoever loses this game, and in this scenario, I believe it'll be Georgia, you really won't penalize them in the college football playoff because it's just that good of a game. But I believe Texas beats Georgia by 1 touchdown or less. I lean somewhere in the 3 to 6 point range. It could possibly be an instant classic. And suddenly, just suddenly, the Bulldogs, they're still in the top 10, though, where they would drop probably to number 8. And Texas would seem even greater than they are right now. Let's talk flip side of the coin just in case. Let's just say that Georgia comes in and beats them. You're going to see Georgia move up to probably number 3, maybe number 2. Texas drop down to number 4, number 5, especially if it's a close game. I see this being a close game. I see this being a close game with the Longhorns taking over, doing their thing, and winning by 3 to 6 points. Now, what would this... Now, pause here. Hang with me before we go. What does this do? What does this do to the SEC? What does this do to the SEC, considering Bama's already lost, A&M's already lost? And I'm talking... and by the way, LSU hasn't lost a conference game. But Georgia's lost a conference game. Bama's lost a conference game. Tennessee's lost a conference game. Ole Miss is 1-2 in conference. This is more of shaking out the dust and separating the wheat from the shaft. Or chaff. Shaft. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing Samuel L. Jackson with an afro. Or Isaac Hayes. Sorry. Did Shaft have an afro? I think he did. I don't know. Who cares? That was a squirrel moment. But my point is, if Texas wins this ballgame, and I think they will, Georgia gets loss number 2 in conference, and I believe Texas A&M, or Texas, not Texas A&M, Texas fully takes control of the SEC from this point forward. I mean, they have a tough schedule. They have a very tough schedule compared to most teams in the country, but in the SEC, they really don't have a tough schedule. After this Georgia game, if Texas wins this game, they have Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and then at Texas A&M. So if they win this game, there's a great chance you're not going to see a Texas loss the rest of the season. Maybe A&M gives them a run for their money according to how A&M performs for the rest of the season. They're 5-1, 3-0 in the conference. Georgia, on the other hand, Georgia has they play Texas, then they play Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. If Georgia loses this ball game, how do they respond? That's a great question. We will see that, but this game really defines a lot for the SEC as a whole, considering Bama has the losses they have. Ole Miss has the losses that they have. Tennessee, they have one loss in conference, but they don't look that good. This is a statement win for Texas if they pull it together. I think they do. I think they win this game by 3 to 6 points. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. Also, if you're a new viewer or you've been watching for a while and you're like, hey, I haven't subscribed. Remember, it's free. I hope you will subscribe. Also want to give a shout out to Stuart. I met you in downtown Greenville the other day. You responded, but I just want to say hello to you. If you ever see me out in public, as long as you're not crazy or anything, I hope you'll stop by and say hello. Folks, you take care of yourself, and as always, go Tigers.